Hello everyone, this is Travis Rother from CGT 346, and today I'm going to be doing a brief tutorial on a couple different things. We're going to be doing some tracking, some green screening, masking, color correcting, and painting out some tracking markers. So I'm actually going to split this up into two different kind of mini tutorials. The first one we're going to be going over mostly green screening and color correcting, and the second one we're going to be doing some planar tracking and some painting out of the markers, a little more green screening. So let's jump right into the first tutorial. Alright, so this is kind of what the first little video that we're going to make is going to look like. And this is actually a combination of 4 different assets that we're going to composite together in After Effects. So we're going to do some green screening, we're going to do some color correction, and a little bit of masking in this video. And then in the other video we're going to be doing some green screen tracking, marker removal, and planar tracking. So to start off with, we're going to start off with a blank After Effects project. And we have all our video assets here. We have some stock footage of the mercenary girls here. So I'm going to go ahead and just drag and drop kind of our assets into the project. So we want the that video, and we also have the meteor that's streaking through the background, and the explosion that it makes, and then the actual background itself. So now that we've got everything imported, we're going to want to add them to the timeline. So just go ahead and drag and drop everything down into the timeline. And after I do that, now we can just dive right into doing some green screening and chroma keying out the green screen. So if you'll notice, this first clip, it has a pretty nice, it's filmed with a pretty nice green screen in the background. You want to go to your right panel in Effects and Presets and go to Key Light. You can just type in Key Light and it'll be there. And you can just go ahead and drag this, drag this over to your clip. And this little panel over here on the left is going to pop up. You're going to want to select the screen color and just choose kind of a point on the background. And what that's going to do is just kind of key out everything that's that color. You can do a few other just kind of minor adjustments by adjusting the screen gain. That'll kind of affect the edges of things, and maybe if you have some of these artifacts up by the hair, maybe that will help with that a little bit. And same with the screen balance, you can kind of get a little bit different effects, but basically you want it to look as good as you can. So I think that looks decent. Now we're going to do the same thing with the other 2 clips. We have the explosion here. This is just an advertisement at the beginning. We can scrub forward to where that starts and just kind of adjust these points on the timeline where we want it to come in. So we actually want to get rid of all of this. And no, thank you. I do not want to subscribe. Thank you. So go ahead and get rid of that. And we're going to... So now we just have the nice green screen footage. We want to do the same thing, drag our key light into these clips as well. And go ahead and just same basic process. Oops, we're on the wrong one. Okay, so we need to move forward in the timeline. There we go. So let's go ahead and hide that one. So now I did the key light to key out this same background the same way, and we're going to do the same with the meteor. Oh, gotta be selecting the right thing. And that gives us kind of just a quick and dirty chroma key that we can use. And ooh, this doesn't look good. Alright, think we just need to fix this. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this one because it screwed up some way. There we go. So now everything we have is keyed out, and we are ready to move on to our next step in the process, which is kind of just positioning everything the way we want. And to do that, we can just kind of click and drag the elements we want. So we want this meteor, actually we're going to position the meteor first, and I want it to land somewhere in the back, right around there. It's probably good. And then the explosion is going to happen right after, actually move this a little bit more, right around there. And the explosion should occur, so we're going to adjust this right as the meteor is hitting. There we go. Adjust that. So, streaking in, boom. Another thing you'll notice, this trail is overlapping the rock formation. So to get rid of that, we're going to do a quick little mask. And what I like to do when I'm masking is actually go ahead and make this meteor go into the transform and change the opacity a little bit just so I can see behind it and see what needs to be masked out. So if we go ahead and hit G, that'll select our pen tool, and from here you can actually just start drawing on the frame, and just kind of define where the edge of that rock formation is. Just kind of really quickly. And we can zoom out and just kind of draw a nice big box around the rest of it, because it doesn't really matter for the rest. And so our result is what we end up with. It's actually in front, so now we can change this opacity back to being full. And now you can see it's in the background instead of the foreground, which is good. So that's good. We've got the explosion happening. Now the other thing is we don't want that trail to keep disappearing. So we're going to want to do a time remap on this meteor. So to do that, just right click on the timeline, say go to time, enable time remapping. And we're going to want to adjust this diamond here to just before everything disappears, and then stretch this out to the end of the composition. And we're actually going to set this work area to be a little bit less while we're at it. And so what that's going to do is hold that last little bit for as long as you have it time remapped, which is exactly what we want. And then we kind of want it to fade away at the end, so I'm going to add another effect called directional blur. Go ahead and drag that into the meteor. And set the direction a little bit. And we're going to actually key on this blur length. So click the little stopwatch thing there, and then scrub to the end of our work area. And we are going to set this blur length to be quite a bit more. So it's like, so as we're going along here, it's kind of like this smoke is dissipating roughly, kind of at the same rate as the cloud, like the mushroom cloud is dissipating. Okay, so now that we have that, let's go ahead and show this girl's clip again just to see what it looks like. And it looks okay. Let's go ahead and reposition this a little bit, shrink them down a little bit. Hold shift to keep the scale. You don't want to shrink them down too much or it's going to look kind of fakey, because they'll seem like midgets or something. So I'm just going to reposition them, just nudge them a little bit, just so we can see that explosion a little bit better as it's streaking past. So that's probably good. So now what we want to do is fix this background a little bit. So this background isn't going to be in completely sharp focus the way it is by default. It's going to be blurred because we have a pretty narrow depth of field here. We're focusing pretty heavily on our subjects here, and then as you go back only like maybe 2 meters or so, it starts to get blurry. So this background is going to be very blurry if we just kind of extrapolate from that. So what we want is to actually create an adjustment layer by going up to Layer, New, Adjustment Layer, and put this below the girls.mp4, and anything that's below this adjustment layer will get the effects I applied to it. So we're going to apply a Gaussian blur and kind of adjust this, and then as I adjust this, it affects all of these layers, so I can make everything blurred out. And we want kind of to make it look like things in the very far back are even blurrier than the things in the like not quite so far back. So I'm actually going to go ahead and duplicate this layer, adjust the blurriness even more here. I press Control D to duplicate, by the way, and then we're going to actually create a new mask on this adjustment layer. So things in the background are even more blurry than things in the foreground. And if I just left it like that, there's going to be that hard edge. It looks really bad. But we can actually go into this masks, mask 1, and change this mask feather so it gives us kind of a soft border, and adjust that as much as we want. So that'll give us a nicer kind of soft border. So it looks like maybe this foreground is a little bit more in focus than the background. And we can even adjust this adjustment layer some more, so maybe we don't want the entire thing blurry like that. So we get kind of a nice depth of field effect here, and it's a kind of an easy way of doing that. So now our girls and everything kind of got a nicer look to it. So from here, I think we're about ready to color correct. We've got everything set up the way we want it. So what I like to do is adjust the curves first on all of our layers. So I'm going to go in to curves, drag that into our girls.mp4, and put a dot on each of these quarters here. So, and the bottom left is going to adjust the black level, which is kind of the most important for matching things, in my opinion, at least with these clips. So if we adjust that, you can kind of see that gives us a nice deeper black than what we had. The upper right adjusts more of the lights, and the center is kind of the mid-tones. So we're going to work with just the blacks, just those. Maybe tweak these a little bit. Not too much. We just want to get things matched up a little bit nicer. And the explosion, I kind of want this explosion to have darker black smoke, so I'm going to add a curve to that as well. And we're going to adjust this bottom layer so it gives a nice dark black smoke that comes up. So that's good. And the next thing I want to do is actually add an adjustment layer on top of everything. So if I go up to New, Adjustment Layer again, put that on top of everything. We're going to adjust everything at once. And to do that, we're going to do a color balance to do a little bit of color correction. And brightness, contrast, and you can just wholesale adjust this kind of stuff. If I want to adjust the contrast on everything, I can. And I'm actually going to go down to this background, hue, saturation. I think the background is a little bit oversaturated compared to relative to everything else. So I can just adjust this master saturation and just tweak that a little bit. So maybe it's not quite as saturated. And so it's just a lot of little tiny tweaks. Meteor is good, explosion is good. Girls, I think we might want to add a brightness contrast to this layer as well. I mean, there's a lot of different things you can do. You could spend all day just messing with these different settings. Yeah, maybe this is needs a little bit more saturation. Yeah. And the adjustment layer, contrast a little bit. And it depends what look you're going for as well. I like that. Another thing you can do that I think is kind of cool is this leave color. And what you can do is just select what color you want to stay on the composition. So if I select that blue, you can make only blue be selected, and then I can change this edge softness. So just play around with the settings. Tolerance, maybe not so much. So you can get some kind of cool effects going here. I like that. It's kind of cool. And there's some actually pretty cool things you can do. Colorize. And there's a lot of presets on here that look kind of nice, I think. Colorize infrared. Let's see what that does. Whoa. So, I mean, you can make them look like they're on a different planet. Gold dip. That's kind of cool. But the nice thing about the adjustment layer, we are off this page, so we need to adjust this down a little bit, is that it allows you to kind of give everything a nice coherent effect, so that everything is being adjusted at once. There's not a lot of mismatch between the different layers that you have. I really like this. And I mean, you can choose a lot of different things. I might even be able to set the blend mode on this layer. Let me try that actually. If I right click here, blending mode, overlay, yeah, we can get some pretty cool effects. So you can really set a different mood and tone depending on what you do. I can make it look kind of washed out. I like this. This is good. So I'm going to go with that kind of sepia sort of look. I'll just keep it like that. That looks cool. And like this adjustment layer, I think if I change the opacity as well, it's kind of will allow you to choose the degree that that's happening with. So anyways, that's pretty much the tutorial for this section. Once you're done messing with the settings, you can go ahead and render everything out just how you want it. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, thanks for watching. Hey everyone, this is part 2 where we are going to do some planar tracking. I have a clip of a guy holding an iPhone. It's blank, and what I want to do is keep those reflections intact and insert our own video clip onto that screen. So the first thing you want to do is make sure your layer is selected and go to Animate and Track in Mocha AE. And once this gets all open, now it's open in Mocha AE, and we want to go in, say, New X-Spline, and make a new X-Spline around the phone. And avoid his fingers because there's a possibility that the fingers could mess up the shot, the track, I mean. And what we're going to want to do is just kind of fine-tune this layer. And now the thing is, the reflections are going to mess up the track, so we want to exclude them from the track. We only want to really be watching this outside edge of the orange. So to do that, we want to click on Add X-Spline to Layer and draw another rectangle around the screen. So what this is going to do is tell Mocha not to track the screen because of the reflections. And if you go up here to Mats, I think you can see where this Mats will show you where the tracker is actually going to look. So that's kind of a helpful thing. So that's all in place right now. Now we can just go forward and go to track forwards. And that's going to give us, it's going to set through each frame and give us a nice track. Okay, so now we've got our track, and we want to export this data that Mocha just gathered for us and put it back into After Effects. So to do that, we go down here to Export Tracking Data, and we want to select After Effects Corner Pin Supports Motion Blur. And that seems, I've had the most success with that one. So go ahead and say Copy to Clipboard. And now we can come back into After Effects, and let's find the footage that we want to add in. And that footage is going to be our tutorial video that we just made. Okay. Do a quick Control V. There we go. And we have our tracking data. So you want to make sure that slider is at the beginning. That's what I didn't do. Okay, but now we just need to align it with the screen. So go ahead, if we look at the effects that are happening, we have a corner pin and a transform. You want to make sure corner pin, get rid of these keyframes, and then go ahead and drag the corners to where you want them to be on the edge of the screen. So now, when we play through this, so obviously that's not the best track in the world, but it's a start. You can see a lot of slippage. So to do this better, we could probably get a better track if we spent more time. And then another effect to keep the reflections, if we right click on here and go to Blend Mode, Screen, that'll let us keep the reflections. So it looks a little bit more realistic. So yeah, that's the basics of planar tracking. Thanks.